everyone. It's such an honor to be in a room full of such amazing human beings. I read through your fellow bios and got to know a little bit about the work that y'all are doing, and just gratitude for everything that you're bringing into this room. Thank you. My name is Selena Feliciano, and I, as it was introduced, I'm the campaign coordinator for the Reimagine Energy for Our Communities US campaign, which is also known as the REFOCUS campaign for short. I'll tell you lots more about that and the way that this is going to go. Let's still hold off on screen sharing for now, because I want to pass the mic over to Alyssa to introduce herself as well before we officially kick off. But we've got about 20 minutes together. I'm going to let Alyssa introduce herself a little bit, and then we're going to go into a little bit of interactive activity, talk about what energy even is, especially within the context of the campaign and the way we're trying to shape a new framework. Alyssa will talk more about the work that she does after that, and then we'll close off with a little bit more interaction. So hopefully this is less of us being talking heads for 20 minutes and more of some conversation, some using of the chat, and some questions. So I'll pass over the mic to Alyssa for a brief intro.
Thank you, Selena. Hi, everyone. My name is Alyssa. My pronouns are she, they. I am the Energy Equity Associate at Solar United Neighbors, also known as SUN. I've been in my role for about 7 months now, and I'm just really grateful to be in a space with fellow colleagues who are interested and have a passion about driving energy democracy. So I just feel really grateful that I'm able to end off my workday being in a space and having good conversation. So thank you for the invite.
Thanks, Alyssa. All right, so to kick us off, as I promised, I want this to be a little interactive. So I'm going to ask all of you to drop into the chat and answer to the question, what energizes you? Just drop that in the chat. I'll model. I might say hanging out with friends. So just drop that in the chat. No right or wrong answers. Let's take about 20 seconds. Yes, community, dancing, love it. Yes, eating a sandwich in the sun, relatable, love it. Nature, sun, tacos, dogs, good food and good company, movies, friends, sunbathing, helping someone meet a goal. Oh, that's beautiful. Music, beautiful Black people, being with friends and family and nature and water and smiles. Oh, these are all so beautiful. More music, experiencing love. Noor, that's so gorgeous. Technology, hugs, ocean. All right, I'm gonna pause. Dog cuddles. Yes, thanks for dropping that extra one in the chat, Jessica. Okay, so I ask this question all the time to people. I ask this to folks who are self-proclaimed solar experts and others who are organizers and others who identify as community members or educators. Really, it doesn't matter the title, but no one ever answers solar panels. No one ever answers distribution and transmission lines. And I think it's such a wonderful and humbling exercise, because it gets us out of our heads, especially as we're thinking within the context of being solar energy fellows within this room, and thinking about, what are those things that come to mind first when energy is prompted? And it isn't always those intricate solar technologies or those intricate quote unquote clean energy technologies that come to mind. It's all of these beautiful things that you dropped in the chat. And those are the sort of things that we're driving for everybody to have the chance to do so safely, to do so in their homes comfortably, to do so sustainably for the long run. So that sort of sets the stage for today. I'm going to be doing not that much talking about solar technology. I'll just tell you all that straight up. Alyssa might be doing a little bit more, but I'm going to be talking about this larger framework of energy and what it might mean within the context of our organizing and of our community building, and how we make the topic of energy accessible and inclusive and exciting. So let's go ahead and pop open those slides. And I'm going to be showing some slides that are from a PSEF member, and they're also an Energy Democracy Project collaborator, People Power Solar Cooperative. So this slide, you, me, us, and all of life on planet Earth exist because of the sun's solar energy. Next slide, please. Each day and night, whether we notice them or not, the sun and moon rise in the east and set in the west as the seasons change. And it's within this circular system that plants breathe oxygen and that we experience the living world. Next slide, please. And when we recognize, oh, I know, it's loading. Uh-oh. Well, that's okay. It's basically a slide of the sun going in a cycle around the earth that says energy is a verb. And we say that because when we recognize this ancient state of regenerative motion, we can understand that energy is alive, it's surrounding us, and it's within us always. It's never stagnant, it's always moving. But many of us today have forgotten how to be in relationship with the energy of the earth and of our solar system. Let's go on to the next slide, please. This slide depicts the dominant economy today, which exists in direct contradiction to this energy. Instead, it's advancing a linear narrative of endless extraction, of industry and infrastructure, and a linear model of exponential growth of corporate profit. Next slide, please. This is another GIF, same thing, sun is moving, but we can change this. We can change the dominant economy, because when we remember that the systems we exist within, the systems that create and support life are circular, we can exist without extraction. We can be in relationship with the natural balance of regeneration and connections to one another and our environment. And now it's our responsibility to apply our energy to collectively redesign our economies that reflect those regenerative systems that we all live within. Let's skip over a couple slides. There's going to be some houses that pop up. So yeah, let's go back one. Perfect. Thanks, Jessica. So how do we apply this sort of larger forest view of energy as a verb down to the local level? And I like to focus on something that is familiar for everybody. It's our homes. And our homes take many shapes and forms. Here we have 3 homes that are spread all across the country. There's a home in Santa Fe, New Mexico, over to the left, where currently organizers are fighting up against mineral extraction and ongoing extraction and theft of sacred lands. In the middle, we have a home in Maui, Hawaii, where community members last year faced a record-breaking wildfire. And a home on the right, that's from San Juan, Puerto Rico, where currently organizers are working for a decentralized, democratized, and a decolonized energy system that breaks away from the current utility model, wherein a private multinational conglomerate is coming in and trying to take over the energy system of Puerto Rico. So all 3 of these homes have different stories, different families living with them. But whether your home is city, countryside, or coast, we all use power. Power that keeps your home warm in the winter, cool in the summertime, and safe in a changing climate. We all deserve this power. It's essential to life. But for far too long, energy corporations and power authorities have thought otherwise. Let's move on to the next slide. Because those energy corporations and power authorities have written the rules on the cost, reliability, and the safety of our electricity. They profit off of something that we all need to survive and thrive, while they leave us to suffer as they throw fuel into the fire of climate change. They burn fossil fuels that pollute our air, they destroy native lands and places that we recreate, and they leave us in the dark during intense storms. And their power is upheld in what's called a centralized energy model, where, as depicted here, control over decision-making of energy is held in the hands of a few up top, while the rest of us are left to suffer and pay higher bills every single year for their profit gain. Next slide, please. But the good news is that all across the country, we all know that energy is key to our comfortable home. And we all know it's essential for survival. And that's why we have an opportunity to change this paradigm by prioritizing community access to and control over the energy that we need to meet our needs ourselves now and into the future. We can guarantee safe and stable living environments adaptive to climate change, especially for our communities that are hit first and worst by climate disaster. Black and Brown communities, Indigenous communities, low-income communities. And that's what energy democracy is about. And that's what REFOCUS is about. It's about coming together to reclaim the power of the energy system from these greedy monopoly power companies and authorities, and instead affirm energy as our human right. If you click on the spacebar or next button, we'll have the REFOCUS logo pop up. All right. So as mentioned, the Energy Democracy Project is a network of, I think we're at about 40 organizations right now that are spread all across the country from Alaska to Puerto Rico. And what we're trying to do is really shape the narrative around energy as something that connects us, and are organizing as something that has to be in solidarity with one another, given that the energy system is a global one. And one of the organizations that I respect so much, and I'm so glad Alyssa is here, is Solar United Neighbors. So I'm going to pass the mic over to Alyssa to chat about the work that Solar United Neighbors is doing within this national network of organizing for a reimagined energy future.
Thank you, Selena. Yes, so at Sun, we understand that centering energy equity is important to enact meaningful and intentional change to drive what Selena just described, energy justice and democracy. So this means at Sun, we consistently evaluate our approaches, practices, and metrics. That way we continue to grow and deliver programmatic successes while also leveraging opportunities to improve. So part of my role includes assisting our state directors in the design and implementation of our low to moderate income pilots, which is meant to increase awareness and build support and make solar more accessible for families and communities who typically have lacked access to clean technology. So I wanted to share a story about a particular pilot we did in Houston, Texas. I'm based in what is known as El Paso, Texas, and it is a particularly unique place because 85% of the state gets electricity in a no retail market. There's also no net metering policy, and it is also the place of the Permian Basin, which is the highest producing oil field in Texas and in the United States overall. And Houston itself is home to a third of the nation's oil and gas extraction jobs. So this current energy and political landscape in Texas presents a unique opportunity for communities to really be a blueprint in energy democracy and control how their energy is sourced. So as we know, Houston is a place where they experience many climate disasters. They're becoming more severe and frequent, and vulnerable communities are experiencing a disproportionate impact. We know when disasters hit, they amplify and expose failures within our current systems, and specific communities are not taken care of. We see folks in Houston who are still recovering from Hurricane Harvey, the winter storm in 2021, and so on. And I wanted to take a moment to share what project we are currently doing in Northeast Houston. Northeast Houston is home to a strong community organizing where residents and grassroots coalition have been banding together to improve living conditions and infrastructure resiliency. It is a majority Black and Latina population, and they bear the brunt of climate-related impacts due to poor drainage infrastructure, poor housing stock, and consistent divestment from disaster relief funding. They also experience a high energy burden, and they spend upwards of 7% of income to pay their energy bills. And we know that the median household income in the US spends 3% on these expenses. So the community is fighting for a long-term systems change. So what does this look like? Between 2022 and 2023, Sun and community partners in Northeast Houston worked together to deploy rooftop solar installations on 10 single-family homes. And the purpose of this was to make direct investments in an energy burdened community, identify barriers to rooftop solar access, and improve and scale access to solar in Texas. Because of this, we installed the solar systems, fully funded installations at no cost to the homeowner. And 3 of the households also received donated batteries, which can help them keep the lights on during climate disasters. The cool part about this is that the participants who received the battery storage had volunteered to be resiliency hub homes within the community. So these homes, when disasters hit, will serve as heating or cooling and charging centers in the event of a grid outage. And the hub homes also have medical supplies as well. And just kudos to the whole Sun Texas team and the community partner organizations that we worked with to really build this project. And this work connects to how we confront the root causes, allocate resources, and share power with community. And I really wish I had slides because I know some folks may be visual learners, but I can answer any questions once we get into that part. Selena, yes, there's a list of community partners and I can definitely drop that into the chat. West Street Recovery was one of them. They are amazing. They have built on the ground relationships for years, and we really use them as a trusted partner to get the message out within the community. And I will kick it back to Selena.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing, Alyssa. And yeah, I learned new stuff in this reach share. So really grateful for you taking the time. And I'm excited for our Q&A session later on today. I want to take a quick check and see how much time do we have left, Jessica?
We have about like 7 more minutes if you have that much time to share with us, and then we'll be on our breakout session.
I do. Okay, great. Let's go ahead and jump back into the slides, and I'll share a little bit more. So I'm so appreciative of the ways in which Alyssa framed her work and also shared some of the real effects of climate disaster that are happening in her town of El Paso. And those sort of effects are seen all across the country and really all around the world. And when we consider this sort of larger framework and larger paradigm that is bringing this to the forefront and really causing all of these impacts, we have to consider the extractive economy. So let's go ahead and click through to 2 more. Perfect. And as a reminder, yes, perfect. The primary purpose of the dominant economy is the accumulation, concentration, and the enclosure of wealth and power. This is an image from movement generation that I often turn to when I'm giving presentations and I'm talking about the extractive economy, because I think it's really helpful to understand how cyclical this is, from shaping not only how funds move to and away from organizations and from our pockets, to militarization, to ongoing extraction of sacred resources. So let's go over to the next slide. And I'm going to ask you all a question, and anyone can open up and unmute themselves. Can anyone guess which entity uses this logo? Any guesses? Which entity has used this logo in the past, which reads "Protect Tomorrow Today"? There's a sun and some hills and looks to be some water. You could drop it in the chat if it feels more comfortable to guess in chat rather than by voice. Exxon. I see Exxon, BP, fossil fuel company. Drew, I hate to tell you, it's a fossil fuel company. Exxon is correct. So props to N. Lynette. Yes. So big oil's deception is by design. It's a tried and true business plan for the world's largest polluters to make public promises about sustainability while they line their pockets with the largest profits in decades. Let's move on to the next slide. And this one is a trickier one. This is a Newsweek article that states how PG&E is working to power the clean energy future. PG&E is the largest utility here in California, where I live. I pay my bills to Pacific Gas and Electric. So what's wrong with PG&E and what's wrong with this image? We see that they're installing solar, okay, but They lit the most devastating wildfires in our lifetimes here in California, all while recording record-breaking profits and paying their CEO a $50 million annual salary. Is that sustainable? No, is popping a $1 billion utility scale solar system in the desert that still requires transmission lines spread across hundreds of miles sustainable? I think we all know the answer. And if you click through, we'll see some more photos. And you're right, everything is wrong with PG&E. And you're right, PG&E is terrible. So I'm glad that I'm in the room with some really dope community solar advocates, because you all get it. You all understand the need for us to break free from this larger scale utility system and into levels at the community level, and ways in which we have conversations that get more people engaged around energy. I often have a lot of people asking me, especially folks who are self-proclaimed clean energy advocates, what's my role here? How am I meant to be spreading the word about things like these? And I like to bring up an anecdote from a lived experience that I had last year. Let's go on to the next slide. And I learned from my time in New Mexico. And in New Mexico, there are community ditches that are named acequias, and they're recognized as political subdivisions of the state. And many of the state acequias span far before the Spanish colonial system, before colonization, but they were really institutionalized under the Spanish colonial rule. And consistent among all of these acequias is the key role of the mayordomo, which translates to butler. And they've historically been the keepers of tradition and knowledge about their stream source and their community. And they hold respect and diplomacy and a careful measure of authority. They're essentially elected by folks in the community, and their role is to hold a lot of the knowledge about the acequias. There are stories, if you ask people around town, of people's grandparents being the ones bringing their brooms out to the ditches to make the ditches a reality many years ago. And today, these waterways flow because the mayordomo has to literally go door to door, or I guess text now, to ask people to open up the gates of the ditch to let the water flow when a neighbor needs the water as it comes down from the mountain. And I think that there's a really beautiful analogy here of the mayordomo as someone that has so much technical expertise, but the community members really being the ones with the agency and decision-making power over whether or not the waters flow. And in order for the water to flow, it requires that skilled stewardship and facilitation on the mayordomo's part, and also the collective decisions of the whole community so that the waters can really flow fully. And as I think about all of your roles, not only as fellows in PSEF, but the work that you each do in your own individual organizations, you all hold this sort of role as the mayordomos of all this technical expertise and knowledge that you're gaining in collaboration with one another, and going, in the proverbial sense, door to door to spread the information so that community members can make their decisions and feel informed as they make their decisions about that reimagined energy future, especially as we transition from that extractive economy to the regenerative one. And if you click open to the next slide, that's the other half of the image from Movement Generation, where we have this reimagined future of caring and sacredness, of regeneration, of cooperation, of ecological and social well-being, deep democracy. And we can have all those gorgeous things that we typed in the chat, and also what we stated in the beginning around energy democracy. So I'm going to pause there, and I think I'm going to end my presentation here. And I'll give one more note, and that is that the REFOCUS campaign has so many different resources for you all as you're speaking to folks in your community. We've got a messaging guide, we've got a zine, we've got a website, we've got an action demand for people to sign up in solidarity with what's going on in Puerto Rico. And if you want to access that, if you click onto the next slide, you can go ahead and just type in this URL, energydemocracy.us/refocus. You'll find our action demand, and you'll also find the link to all the different REFOCUS resources that are offered on the Energy Democracy Project website.